Welcome to RTV News in Rwanda and around the world. Now getting to our top story, the President of the Republic of Rwanda has arrived in London for the funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The funeral will be held on Monday, 19th of September 2022. After arriving in London, President Kagame, who is also the chair in office of the Commonwealth, first signed the Book of Condolences at Lancaster House. The funeral will be attended by 500 heads of state and government and other dignitaries from around the world. Rwanda has been commended for standing with the British people during this difficult time.
So I've been really touched by all the messages of support in Rwanda, and I'm very grateful for those. I'm also grateful for the fact that the government decided to half-mast the flags across Rwanda during this period of mourning. And also I'm grateful that His Excellency the President will be attending Her Majesty's funeral tomorrow, which will be seeing world leaders from around the world come together to mark her passing. I would just say that I'm also grateful to His Grace the Archbishop here for helping us to organize this service, and I'm very grateful to everyone who attended today. And at the moment, Rwanda is chair of the Commonwealth, and His Majesty King Charles III is head of the Commonwealth. So I think that means there will be a very close relationship working together between His Majesty and His Excellency President Kagame. They have already spoken together to talk about how they want to take forward the Commonwealth together, and so I think that's going to be important work.
Moving on, before going to the United Kingdom on Saturday, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, His Excellency Paul Kagame, was in America where he chaired the Presidential Advisory Council. The council convenes Rwandans and international experts who offer strategic advice to the President and the government of Rwanda on various matters. The council was established in 2007. This coming week, President Paul Kagame will be attending the General Assembly of the United Nations, which will take place at the headquarters of the United Nations in New York. The General Assembly will be reviewing how to deal with various challenges that are currently threatening humanity. These include COVID-19 and its effects, the war in Ukraine, climate change, and the global economic crisis, as well as other issues around the world. Still in the news today, heads of schools and other players in education in the Eastern Province are committed to reforming the system and aligning it more closely with the country's vision about education for all, with quality through all concerned. Olive Tete explores.
After various discussions held and trainings prepared by the Ministry of Education, which aimed at helping educators and partners in education to reflect the changes in the next school year of 2022-2023, various educators in the Eastern Province appreciated the role of the government in the reforms that have been established. They vowed to improve the performance and adapt to the changes so that the quality of education set by the government can be achieved.
The second thing is how you thought about the salary of teachers in consideration of how prices are currently on market. We really appreciate the initiative. The third is how you again thought about the fee needed for a child to receive food at school, especially in primary schools, where it was hard to ask money from the parents, and reducing it to 975 Rwandan francs. We thank you for that.
Hari byinshi ababanje bashimye ngewe akakanya.
Those who preceded appreciated various things. I'd like to stand here to commit to some various things according to the discussions held here. As heads of schools, we committed to do our best to prevent school dropout, where we will be following up daily on the attendance of students and also attend meetings of local residents to sensitize parents to send children to school. Dr. Uwamaria Valentine, the Minister of Education, notes that the performance of schools in the Eastern Province is not satisfactory compared to the vision of 2024 of the government, mainly due to various mistakes that should be rectified with the commitment of school leaders. We want to achieve a better education system that shows the good image of the country, improving the management of institutions, managing the resources of the institutions, identifying the working and non-working teachers and those who are absent, seeing if they are teaching how they are supposed to teach, for all that is needed to be available to provide knowledge to a student. They also revealed some of the challenges they are facing, including school materials, and that is what we will review together so that what the ministry has to provide can be provided on time for them to fulfill their responsibility. Among the urgent issues that particularly concerns the Eastern Province includes returning 400 children to school who dropped out of school since last year of 2021-2022, and the issue of students who finishes the first grade of primary school without knowing how to read, count and write. The Minister of Education requested the education institutions to increase their efforts in nursery schools and lower primary level rather than focusing on those who are going to sit for the national exams. She noted that highly skilled teachers should teach the lower levels so that students can start with a good foundation, which will assist them in the next grades. The discussions about education matters were held in all provinces and the city of Kigali. Participants were reviewing different measures that would further improve the quality of education and solve problems that are unique to each province. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. Still on matters of education, the Ministry of Education has warned school principals who have set charges that are different for parents from what was set by the Ministry of Education. Adam Squizera with this report.
In discussions between the Ministry of Education and principals of schools that are in Kigali City, where some principals revealed that there was some projects that was already started, such as renovating fences, classrooms, providing breakfast, plus other infrastructures. Some of them have already conducted meetings with parents and agreed to pay more than what was set by the Ministry of Education. The school principals indicated the challenges they may face during the implementation of these instructions.
Ku kigo cyanjye ibikorwa nk'ubu nari ndimo muri iyi minsi nayo natangiye no kubikora.
At my school, we want to abolish double shift for the primary students. There are some classrooms we renovated, plus other expenses which required a lot of money. For that case, we used to ask parents 5,000 for those activities.
Ababyeyi bari basanzwe ubundi batangira 5,000 bigenerwa ibikorwa nk'ibyo ngibyo.
There was a confusion regarding school fees payments. Due to the structure of some schools, there was some difference in payments, which required the role of both parent and the government, hence that we appreciate Mineduc for giving clear instructions about it.
It was discussions that was attended by local authorities of Kigali City, revealed that there are some principals who are raising the price of school materials, both at school. As the state minister in charge of ICT and TVET, Irere Claudette, pointed that no school principal should charge more fees than those set by the ministry.
There are some who are talking about the infrastructural projects, as we urged the local authorities to work with schools so that those school projects should be added in the budget. And we warn any principal who will tend to violate these instructions, they will be punished.
With 1 week left to kick off 2022-2023 academic year, the mayor of Kigali City, Prudence Ruingisa, noted that as local authorities, they will put much effort to ensure that these instructions are getting implemented by the schools. We are going to work together with schools and parents' committees to implement those instructions. On Wednesday, the Ministry of Education announced new school fees to be paid in public schools, where in secondary, the parents' contribution will be 19,500 Rwandan francs per term for a day scholar, then 85,000 francs for students in boarding schools or in addition to other school materials. In case it is necessary and approved by the parents' committee, there should not exceed 7,000 per term for any special case at school. Adam Squizera, RTV News.
The Ministry of National Unity and Civil Engagement has given assurances that it is working closely with the Ministry of Education to update history textbooks. It was after the school's administrators noted that the textbooks the students were using do not fully inform them about the original history that marked Rwanda during the past periods. Nuriath Agasaro with this report.
It was a good opportunity with the representative from provinces, districts, heads of schools, and the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement in order to find a solution to the problems that threaten the quality of education. Dr. Bizimana Jean Damascene, the Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement, was informed during a meeting that there is still difficulty with expanding the history of other countries, but Rwandan history is being studied inadequately.
urebye ibitabo dufite ntabwo bigaragaza amateka nyirizina.
Since the books we have do not reflect to the actual history of Rwanda as it was built at its first, we urge the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement to gather and publish books that illustrate the history of Rwanda from the beginning of the colonialist to the colonial period and go back to the first and second republics until the genocide and the after genocide, and also what we achieve as the government of Rwanda and what we have provided to the Rwandans. That's why we are requesting the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement to put together and release these books.
The Rwanda Basic Education Board also said that the training given to history teachers helped them to know how to teach this subject and that they are ready to increase the number of historical books this year in order to promote this subject in schools and improve its content, as is stated by Dr. Mbarushimana Nelson, the Director General of Rwanda Education Board.
Turimo turashaka gufata ingamba zo kugira ngo dutubure ibitabo by'amateka.
We want to figure out how to increase the number of history books in all schools, as well as in the national budget for the textbooks, will be contained. Some of the responsibilities, such as those in charge of curriculum, are looking at the content to see if there is something we can add to our history or updates for the current content. But as it is now, we are getting to add some content, and the teachers are available.
Dr. Bizimana Jean Damascene, the Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement, promises the head of schools that he is closely working with the Ministry of Education and a team of professionals to update the history textbooks.
Turemera yuko koko hari ibice bimwe na bimwe by'amateka yigishwa biri mu mfashanyigisho bikwiye
We agree that some parts of the history that are taught in school should be updated, not only to add missing ones, but also to correct any errors that may exist. What I can say is that we are monitoring the issue with the different institutions, including the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of National Unity and Civic Engagement, independent experts, university professors, and a group that examines the teaching curriculum for primary schools to secondary schools in order to correct those errors and add what's missing.
In this meeting, the leaders were again reminded that they are the ones who are in charge of educating the future Rwandans because 70% are youth. Nuriat Agasaro, RTV News.
Now, when the supermodel Judith Hard was recently crowned Miss Environment International Africa 2022, the Change champion did not waste any time just talking about what can be done in regards to environmental justice and climate investment solutions. She told RTV she wanted to take action, and she emphasized in a one-on-one interview with myself that women and children affected by the effects of climate change. Here is what she had to say.
As public figures, we should be using our voices to talk about sensible things for good. And we have a climate issue, which is very, very big all over the world. So I chose to use my voice for a good cause.
You're not just talking, you're doing. And I was so attracted to your initiative, the 5 million trees 2022. Can you tell us about this project?
So the 5 million trees, the entire Africa is affected by climate change. And the easiest way we can actually help is by planting as many trees as possible, and also not just trees, but trees that are going to capture carbon, and that is one way of avoiding climate issues. So we have added to our campaign 50 million trees for Africa by 2050, and we happen to be at Kwitizina. I spoke to different celebrities, big names. I've interested Dragomir, and when I approached him, he was actually like, "Oh, we're doing the same thing in Ivory Coast." I was like, "Cool, let's do it together," because he's a name, he's a household. we're supposed to be using our voices for things that are affecting the world, not things that are affecting me at home, but things that are affecting the world. And the biggest issue right now that we are facing is climate change.
Yes, one of the other things that you have been talking about is women. Why gender actually matters when it comes to climate action. Can you unpack that for us?
When we have landslides, when we have floods happening in areas, the first people that are affected are girls and women, and these women are always going to end up running to a place that is not safe, just looking for resources. And sometimes families are going to end up putting their children in early marriages because they're trying to find a secure area for their daughter, for their child. When we think about climate distress, the first people that have to come to our minds is the women. And while they're running away for a better life, this is when we come to cases like sexual harassment. They're going to end up pregnant at an early age.
Yes.
So these vulnerable people are the people that I'll always put my attention to. And yes, climate change affects women and children mostly. I'm trying to build a safe place for women. As a rape survivor, I can never forget about the girls. I would love to have a safe home, a place where they come and learn different skills, a place where they come and feel safe, a place where you come and get counseling, a place you come and interact and meet other girls that have gone through the same thing, a place where you believe there is still life even after everything has happened.
Special thanks to Judith Hart, who is reminding us all that indeed we can do something to make the world a much, much better place. Now, moving on, members of the Anglican Church of Rwanda on Sunday were joined with British nationals living here in the country to pray for the late Queen Elizabeth II and celebrate her life, noting on the role of the UK in spreading the word of God.
Nibo bazanye ubutumwa bwiza mu Rwanda butangirira Gahini bukwira mu gihugu cyose.
They brought the good news first here to Gahini and it later spread to the rest of the country. As Christians, we believe we should stand with them in their time of grief, praying for them to be strong and for their new king to be prosperous and God-fearing, because all knowledge comes from God. As Rwandans, we should also continue united. That is what will show that we are God's children. When it comes to faith, people do not always have to see eye to eye, but we are all still God's children, and with time, everything will be sorted out.
Rwandans who lived in the UK commend the late Queen's humility and love for humanity.
Umuyobozi w'igihugu uburyo yitwaraga uburyo yafataga.
As the Queen, she led the country well, giving good advice after proper consideration. She was well known for that. She was also very humble, and that is why many ordinary people loved her.
Yari umuntu ukunzwe n'abantu benshi basanzwe.
The Anglican Church of Rwanda will mark its 100th anniversary 3 years from now. Now, some of the Car-Free Day participants were tested for non-communicable diseases, including diabetes, breast cancer, high blood pressure, and more. Those who have been tested say they are happy with the process because at times they want to know their status, but they are limited by the daily tasks they have. People of different backgrounds who participated in Car-Free Day activities met at the Nyarurama Adventist Polyclinic, where they were tested for various non-communicable diseases free of charge. Some of the people who have been tested for the non-communicable diseases say that they are happy with the process because at times they want to get tested, but they are limited by resources. We are grateful because we are having limited resources to get tested, especially us who are poor. I have finished testing for diabetes. The head of Nyororama Adventist Polyclinic Health Center says that they are considering testing people for non-communicable diseases because there's a spike in numbers and now more deaths. Therein creating awareness and educating Rwandans about their situation so that they can also know how to behave.
We thought about this activity because we know many people are affected by these diseases and its spread is fast before people thought. They only affected developed countries, but it is evident third world countries are affected too, and the spread is increasing. This activity will help to create awareness and the sick be treated. We need to do it regularly, as we have another activity this month on 25th September.
The executive secretary of Chichuchiro district says the activity will help people and has appreciated the management of the health center for their cooperation, helping the people through this activity, and encourages other clinics to participate in sensitizing people about their conditions and how to avoid diseases.
Here what I want to tell you is that they are providing the services free of charge, but we are putting access to the same in different places. It is good that we have collaborated with this healthcare to do it, and they will come to do so. We are encouraging others to do the same.
During the 7-hour screening process, 353 residents were tested, including 132 for blood pressure, 32 for breast cancer, 32 for cervical cancer, and 157 for diabetes. Globally, non-communicable diseases kill 41 million people each year, 74% of all deaths. Among them, 17 million people under the age of 70, according to the United Nations Health Organization, WHO. Smoking is among the causes of these diseases and related deaths. More than 8 million people die each year from the effects of smoking, both smokers and non-smokers. Another 1.8 million people die from high salt intake, over 1.5 million from alcohol consumption, and 830,000 people from diseases caused by lack of enough physical activity. In Rwanda, every first and third Sunday of the month is earmarked for car-free day activities on roads that are not easily accessed by motor vehicles, and there are activities like this to test for infectious diseases. Thank you for staying with us. I am Isabel Masozera. We wish you a productive week. Do stay with us on RTV.